Welcome to Stellar Sisters, the podcast where cosmic wisdom meets soul-enriching conversation.
We explore astrology, human design, and the unique blueprint of your soul, helping you understand yourself on a deeper level.
Consider this your permission slip to embrace the magic of being authentically you.
Let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stellar Sisters podcast. Today is a little bit of a different episode. We are going to re-release our horoscopes for Uranus in Gemini because it just re-entered Gemini. It's going to be there for 7 years. This is a huge transit. And we did an entire episode on this back in July of 2025. And we really dove into what Uranus means in the chart, the transition from it moving from Taurus to Gemini, how it transitions into each sign about every 7 years. So this is a huge shift for us as individuals, but also for the collective. And if you want to go back and hear more about all of this, you can go back to our Uranus and Gemini episode. I will link it in the show notes for you. But this episode is mainly to re-listen for your rising sign horoscope, so you can have a really good feel and a good idea of where this is going to show up in your own life. What area of your life is this going to make waves for you? And I think it's really important to know if you're one of the mutable signs, if you're a Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, you really want to see where this is affecting you, because if you're one of the mutable signs, it's going to show up in one of the angular houses. So it's either going to be your first house of identity, the fourth house of home and family, the seventh house of relationships, or your 10th house of career and public life. So you want to have awareness of this because something could be shaken up. There could be a surprise, something unexpected that's happening in these areas of life. And you can look up your chart on our website. You can go to stellarsisterspodcast.com and create your own free chart. You can pull that up. You can easily see if you have planets in one of the mutable signs. We also have a free resource on how to read your own chart that will help you to know how to look at your chart and see where the planets are and see where they're falling into the different astrological signs. I will also link that in the show notes for you as well. But just to have awareness around this can be really helpful to help you maybe plan or see, hey, this could be an area of life that is going to be an area of focus for me over the next 7 years. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be in full force for the full 7 years that Uranus is transiting through Gemini. There could be times where you don't even really notice that energy, but it's really nice to have the awareness around it. And just for a personal story, I have Gemini ruling my 9th house of higher learning and long distance travel and spirituality. Right now, I'm really diving into even deeper layers of human design. I'm learning more about partnerships and relationships and group dynamics and what happens to our energy when we're with one person versus another person versus a group of 3 to 5 individuals, and how we can feel like a different person when we're around different people, and how teams work and groups work and families and businesses and larger groups. So I'm really diving into all of that in human design and studying a lot more and just getting into some deeper layers. And it's just so interesting. And of course, the astrology is spot on with Uranus moving into my 9th house of higher learning. I also have been talking to my husband about planning a long distance trip. Our 10-year anniversary is coming up in 2028. We didn't really get to take a big trip honeymoon for our wedding, just with a bunch of different things happening in our lives. So we've been talking about planning that. And it's just hilarious how these things end up being spot on. So it's just really cool to look at the chart, listen to your horoscope. Chanel goes into pretty good detail about each house. So you can really listen for that and see if you resonate with it. Another fun example, which I did get permission to share, is my sister is a Pisces rising. So one of the mutable signs. Gemini is her fourth house of home and family. She has been thinking about eventually moving from her house, but it hasn't really been the correct timing, or it just hasn't been anything of urgency, like maybe eventually we'll move one day. This isn't where we want to be forever. And they've had conversations around that. But with Uranus moving into Gemini in her fourth house, it came to be known that the property across from them has been bought out, and they're going to start building all of these townhomes and developing the area. And my sister doesn't want to be around all that construction. So she wants to sell her house before that is underway in a couple of months. And it just aligns so well with Gemini moving into her fourth house. It's just kind of this unexpected surprise, but it's like pushing her to then go address moving and selling her house and finding a new house. And all of that will happen with Uranus being in her fourth house of home and family. So it just makes so much sense that she would be wanting to sell her house and find a new house to move into. And maybe she'll move a couple times over the next 7 years with that long transit in her fourth house until she finds something that she's really going to be settled into. So it's just really cool to look at that and have awareness around it. And the last thing I want to say and remind you, we talked about this a bit in that episode. So check out the show notes if you want to go back and revisit that episode. But in human design, Uranus is transiting gate 20, and it's going to be there for an entire year. So just a reminder for the dates, if you want to think back to 2025 when Uranus and Gemini gave us a little preview of this house of your life. This went in July 7th of 2025 to November 7th of 2025. Then it went back into Taurus until April 26th, 2026. It finally moved into Gemini for good, and it's going to be there until May of 2033. So those are the dates of Uranus moving through Gemini. And then in human design, it's going to move through all of the Gemini gates. And I just want to focus on gate 20 because it's going to be there for an entire year. So it's going to move into gate 20 on April 28th, and it's going to stay there till May 26th of 2027. And if you go back to the episode, I go into what gate 20 means, but essentially it's the gate of the now and being in the present moment. And how can we share our truth more authentically is basically the essence of this gate and what's going to be happening here. But what I think is really interesting, if you pull up your chart on our website, you can see a big thing to look for is Uranus is going to be activating gate 20 for an entire year. So if you have an undefined throat in human design and you have gate 10, 57, or 34, let's say you have one of those gates in your chart, Uranus is going to come in and activate this. So it's going to give you a defined throat. So you're going to experience having that defined throat, having access to express your truth more consistently over this next year. So if you know you have an undefined throat in human design, I would go check and see if it's creating a channel for you. So you will have that definition. You'll experience what that definition feels like for an entire year. That's a really long time. So go check if you have gate 10, 34, or 57 in your chart. Gate 20 being activated is going to come in and create those channels for you. So it could define your sacral center for you. It could define your G center for you, the center of identity and your sense of direction. If you have that undefined and have gate 10, that's what that would look like for you. You'll experience channel 20 to 10. If you have gate 57, but you don't have 20, it's going to create that whole channel there. And gate 57 in the spleen, maybe you have an undefined spleen, but with gate 57, it's going to show you what a defined spleen and a defined throat center is going to be if you don't have either of those centers defined, but you maybe have hanging gate 57. So it can just be really cool to have that awareness. Maybe you're tapped more into your intuition and being able to communicate and express and say what your intuition is in the present moment. So all of these things can be really cool to lean into and investigate about yourself. And Let's say you have 34 in the sacral, it's going to activate the channel of charisma for you. So you might feel like you're just naturally more talkative and outgoing and wanting to connect with people and share your sacral life force, express your sacral life force in some way. So again, since we released the horoscopes back in July of last year, we wanted to re-release them so they can be fresh. You can re-listen to them and really get a sense of where Uranus is going to be traveling through which house in your life, so you can really feel into it, so you can be prepared. And I think it really does offer you some great insight. And if you feel like you need more support during this time, you can book a reading with Chanel, go deeper into your astrology, go deeper into the different transits that are happening. There's not just Uranus, but other planets moving through in different houses, so she can kind of connect all of the dots for you. And if you want to learn more about your human design or the transits happening in your chart, if different things are being illuminated and connected, and you've had a reading with me before, you can book a mini reading and I can go over those things. If you've never had a reading with me before, you want to book just a regular human design reading so you can get a really good feel for your own essence and energy and your unique strategy and authority and how to use that and how it all comes together and the different gifts that you have. I'll talk about all of those things in your first reading, and then we can dive deeper into the transits if that's something that you're looking for. And if you're 40 to 44, your Uranus opposition is coming up. That's when Uranus opposes exactly where it was on the day that you were born. And we can look at that. I would highly recommend booking an astrology reading for that. And I would highly recommend booking a human design cycle reading for that, because we can see this cycle in human design, what the chart is when you're having your Uranus opposition. So we can see if this changes your design, if it changes your strategy and authority. It also tells you what profile you are. So, you could be a 3-5, and then, for instance, your Uranus opposition, you could be a 6-2. And that's really what you're meant to lean into at this time in your life. You're always going to be what you were born with, whether that's a 3-5 emotional manifesting generator or whatever it is. But then we can look at what your design is during your Uranus opposition, and you can see what your profile numbers are, what your incarnation cross is, what is this specific chapter, period, cycle of your life. What are you meant to lean into? So it's really cool to look at these different things, these different themes that come up. If you feel like you want that support, please check out the website. You can click on readings and book a reading with either one of us. And hopefully we can support you through this time. And we really hope that the Uranus and Gemini horoscopes are helpful for you, that it's something that supports you during this time. If you have questions or just want to share a personal story with us, we'd love to hear it. You can DM us at Stellar Sisters Podcast on Instagram. You can send us an email. You can email stellarsisterspodcast@gmail.com. And as always, we always appreciate any likes, shares, comments, reviews you can leave on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We always appreciate that. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
I'll start with horoscopes for each sign. So if you're an Aries rising, this is Uranus in the third house. So the third house is all about communication, mind, learning, travel, kind of like short distance travel, not necessarily long distance travel, and siblings. So with Uranus there, this is a 7-year transit where you're really reinvigorating your mind. Maybe you are taking a new course of study, you are learning something new, you're working on your communication skills. Maybe you are starting to write a book or write more or speak more, or doing more kind of like public speaking or teaching in some capacity. But this is really a revolution around, your voice, your mind, communication. And this could also potentially have to do with your siblings as well, and have maybe some changing sibling dynamics or relationships, or maybe something happens with your siblings with the Uranus in the third house. For Taurus, this is Uranus entering your second house. So the second house is your money, your possessions, your material items, your what you value, and even has to do with your self-worth as well. So Uranus going into the second house is really a total revolution around the way you make money, the way you relate to um, your surroundings, what you value, your material possessions. This could be, you maybe have always wanted to start your own business, and all of a sudden Uranus goes into Taurus and you're doing it right away. And maybe that was your 10, 20-year plan or something, and you're all of a sudden doing it now. This can be like unexpected shifts in terms of your job or your income. Either way, maybe you're getting laid off, or maybe you're getting a huge promotion that you weren't expecting, or maybe you've been at the same job for 20 years and now all of a sudden you have this new opportunity for this new position. And as a Taurus, you've probably been at that job for the past 20 years because you like stability and predictability. But with Uranus, it's like time to step out of your comfort zone, time to do something new, time to take that leap of faith and try it. So yeah, it's all about money and income really for Taurus. For Gemini, this is happening in your first house of self. So if you're a Gemini rising, this is a huge once in a lifetime transit for you. This is really all about your identity, maybe even your physical health and wellness and body. If you're a Gemini rising, like strap in, because over the next 7 years, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I am a totally different person than I was 7 years ago. And again, this has never happened before in your life. So this is different than anything else you may have experienced before. But this is really about having more independence and freedom to be yourself and who you are. Maybe that's a little bit weird. Maybe that's a little bit quirky. Maybe there's something, um, outside of the status quo or outside of the norm that you are. And it's really your time to embrace that and do that. Break free of old, habits or thoughts about who you were, and really embrace a totally new side of yourself. It's a major, major transit for Gemini rising. This could also be kind of like working on your health stuff with Uranus in the first house. Maybe you're really focused on your health or wellness too with Uranus in the first house. Cancer rising. This is Uranus in the 12th house. This looks like breakthroughs around mental health for Cancer risings. This can be you have been maybe replaying the same patterns in your subconscious for your whole life. And when Uranus goes in the 12th house, this is your opportunity to break free of some of those things that keep you stuck, that keep you playing small, that keep you in the same old patterns, year after year. Uranus going into your 12th house can maybe expose some of those harder, difficult, more inner psychological workings there, but it's your opportunity to break free of those, which is really, really powerful and beautiful. So that's for Cancer rising. For Leo rising, this is happening in your 11th house of community and friends and social groups. So Leo risings, it feels like there's some sort of, if there's like a social cause or humanitarian cause that you're really passionate about or really um, into supporting with Uranus going into the 11th house, this can really make you um, you know, a warrior for that. This can really have you step up and step into advocating for those things more. This it can also look like your friends changing. You know, I would suggest if there are friends or people or groups in your life that maybe they're just, maybe you've had them for a long time, but they're no longer aligned and it's just not working for you. Let those friendships evolve into something new. You don't necessarily have to let them go, but, maybe there are more or there are different people that are supposed to enter your life at this time and, allow yourself to grow your community and your friends. Um, so that's Leo risings. Virgo risings, this is Uranus entering your 10th house of career. Um, so this is pretty major for Virgo rising since you are another mutable sign. This is a total revolution in terms of your career and professional and public life. Maybe you've been in one field for your whole life and Uranus enters your 10th house and you decide to go in a totally different direction. And that's good. Lean into that. Lean into whatever that Uranian energy is taking you towards. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself in terms of your career. Don't be afraid to level up into, the next opportunity, the next thing. Um, but things are changing in terms of career for Virgos and um, allow that change to happen because it's allowing you greater freedom in your professional life. For Libra risings, this is Uranus transiting through your 9th house. This is the house of religion and spirituality and philosophy. Um, this looks like a total, revolution in terms of your spiritual life. You know, um, maybe you were born and raised in a certain religion, and all of a sudden you are, maybe questioning that, or maybe thinking, wait, what do I believe in? What is my truth? What is my spiritual path? What is my spiritual journey? Really breaking free of old beliefs that maybe no longer suit you in terms of this area of your life. This could also look like international travel or faraway travel. This is really breaking out of your comfort zone. Take a trip. Definitely go abroad. I think Libra risings will be going abroad sometime in the next 7 years. Um, or the 9th house also has to do with higher education. So this is similar to the 3rd house in that, you could be, maybe you could literally be going back to school for like, higher education, college degree, master's degree, etc. But also kind of learning something new, expanding your mind, even if it's not in a literal way of like going back to college.
I can't wait to plan my international trip.
I know, right? I think we should go to Paris.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, Scorpio risings. This is happening in your 8th house. So we talked about that and what that meant for Sydney recently, and I think that's a really great example of that. But this is really all about finances, again, not like the 2nd house, which is your personal income, but mortgages, debts, taxes, loans, inheritances. Maybe your kind of finances in that way are going up and down. Maybe you unexpectedly get an inheritance that brings in, more money for you. Maybe your partner is going through some sort of financial changes on their end, which fluctuates your money. Maybe you're able to secure a loan for a mortgage. This can also be on a deeper level more psychological, where you're kind of going through this death and rebirth on more of an inner psychological level, where maybe you're able to break free from some um, inner pain or trauma that you've been experiencing with Uranus in the eighth house. Okay, Sag risings. This is Uranus in your seventh house, which is the house of marriage and partnerships and relationships. Um, this is, a pretty radical change that's happening in your relationships. So, if you're single, this is really radically going to change, your relationship. So I have seen a lot of people meet their partner, get married, get engaged, move in with their partner, something like that with Uranus in the seventh, i.e. Sydney, who met her husband when Uranus was transiting through her seventh house.
And moved in with him and got engaged. And
Hey,
when did it
all of
move
the above.
in? When did it move into Taurus?
It moved into Taurus in 2018. I don't remember the month though. So I don't know if when you got married it
We
was
got
in.
married April 2018. So I wonder, I'll have to
Right.
go back and look.
I know. I was thinking about that too. Um, if you are married, or, in a partnership already with Uranus and Taurus, this looks like a pretty radical revolution around the way that you relate to each other. Um, so maybe your partner is going through some pretty major changes, and that affects your relationship and how you are with one another. This does not necessarily mean, separation. The only reason I say that is because I know that's where everyone's minds go. But if things really, really aren't working with your partner and Uranus goes into the seventh house, it could look like that. I'm not saying that it could never, but it doesn't have to. It does not necessarily mean that that is actually going to happen. I know many Scorpio risings who just went through this transit and they're still with their partner. But there have been changes in their relationships, and think of it as a software upgrade. Again, your relationship was one way pre this transit, and it will be one way post this transit, and it will be an upgrade. It will be a software upgrade. That doesn't mean that there might not be work and effort that goes into that. But ultimately, I think it will bring you and your partner more freedom and independence in the relationship with Uranus there. Okay, Capricorn risings. This is Uranus in your sixth house. So the sixth house is the house of work and it's the house of health. This looks like pretty major changes on the work front for Capricorn risings. Um, your daily life is about to really be shaken up and about to go into a different thing. This could look like getting a new job. You know, maybe you have previously like gone into the office for every job that you've had. Uranus enters the sixth house, and all of a sudden your daily life looks different because you're able to get a remote work from home job. That's just one example that comes to mind there. Um, but your daily habits and routines are really changing, and that could also play into your health. Maybe you are taking care of yourself in a different way. Maybe you are getting into different eating routines, a different exercise routine, the way that you move your body can all change with Uranus going in the sixth house. As a Capricorn rising, I'm looking forward to this because I could really use some changes in terms of my work life. But as a Gemini moon, I'm also a little bit nervous for when Uranus goes on my moon. Um, but I think it will generally, hopefully, be a positive, productive transit for me. If you've been through Uranus in the sixth house, say you're a Sag rising, let me know how that's been for you. Okay, Aquarius rising. This is Uranus in your fifth house. if you are looking to get pregnant and have a baby, this is your time to shine. You could definitely get pregnant during this transit. Again, this doesn't have to mean pregnancy and children, but it can. This looks like a total revolution around your creative life. Um, this is a lot of opportunity for you to really dig into what you love doing, what you love creating, how you like to have fun, how you like to blow off steam and relax. It's kind of really fun and exciting energy for Aquarius risings. This is kind of like a whole new frontier in terms of your creative endeavors that you can really transform and evolve there with the fifth house. Okay, and last but not least, Pisces rising. This is Uranus in your fourth house. So this looks like pretty major changes into your home and family and living situation. This could be you moving, this could be you renovating, this could be, pretty major changes happening with your parents. They could be going through some changes with Uranus in the fourth house. Um, Again, this can be maybe a little bit of a more unstable time in terms of like your home. Again, when this happened to me, I think I moved 5 times in 7 years. So if that, energy is happening for you, it will end, but this is, if you're wanting more space in your living situation, this transit can really help you create that in your home. If you are, um, wanting to reconnect with family, this transit can help you do that. But this is really changes happening in terms of your home. So that's all 12 signs. That's what I got for you.
Thank you for running through all of those. It's so helpful to hear how it's going to affect you and, in what area of life. I find that's so helpful to know and just have awareness around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me too. All right. Well, that's what we got for Uranus and Gemini. So thanks for listening. Please do let me know if you have any like crazy Uranus transit stories, because like I said, it's so interesting and helpful to know. And yeah, I appreciate you listening. We really love hearing all of your feedback. If you feel called to, please rate and review us on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube. That would mean the world to us. So
Yeah.
thank you for listening, everybody, and happy Uranus and Gemini.
Bye.
Bye.